Are you wondering what I'm doing? No, I'm not gardening. I am picking up these heavy rocks. Oh, you mean why? Let's find out. Namaskar and welcome back to my story time. We're doing our Ramayana series and we are on episode number double digits 10. So, let's begin. In our last episode, Hanuman had, with his tail, set the entire Lanka on fire. And then he returned to Lord Ram to let him know that Sita was at Ravan's house. She was in the courtyard and she was waiting for him. And he also informed Ram that Ravan had a huge army. Not that Ram couldn't take care of it, but before a war, you gotta know what your enemy's strength is, right? So you can prepare better. Now Ram knew that war wasn't the answer. He didn't want war. He didn't want any destruction. But Ravan just wouldn't listen. So now Ram, Lakshman, Sugriv, the entire monkey army, they had to get to Lanka. Now they can't fly like Hanuman. And how many times is Hanuman going to fly back and forth to transport them? I'm losing count. They needed... What do you need when you have to cross a river or an ocean? You are correct. They needed a bridge. Now, bridges weren't built the same way back then. So, one of the monkeys suggested, how about we build a bridge with stones? Great idea, but how many stones would it take to cover the bottom of the ocean and then build an entire bridge to cross over? They probably didn't even have that many stones. But there were two monkeys who had magical powers. Anything that they wrote on would float in water. It would never sink. Their names were Nala and Neela. Those monkeys got to task and they had a good idea of writing Ram on each and every stone. And then when they put it in the ocean, those stones would float. So all the monkeys got busy, just how I was busy right now. Remember at the beginning, I was trying to pick up those heavy stones? All the monkeys worked day and night to have all the stones ready. And then once Nala and Neela wrote Ram on it, they then transferred those stones to the ocean. And while all this commotion and preparation was in full swing, there was a little squirrel who was running around all day picking up little pebbles and piling them up and putting those in the ocean. Now once, a monkey who couldn't see a squirrel, squirrels are really tiny, right? Almost tripped on the squirrel, and the squirrel got yelled at. How dare you do this? Don't you know I'm doing such important work? I'm trying to build a bridge here, and you're messing things up. The squirrel said, sorry, sir, but I am also trying to help build a bridge. The monkey looked at the little squirrel and said, ha, who, you? Building a bridge? Try lifting that big stone. The squirrel said, I'm too little to lift that big stone, but that's why I have these little pebbles. And then a bunch of monkeys gathered there and started pointing and laughing at the squirrel. And the squirrel felt really bad for the work that was being done and felt pretty insignificant that the work that the squirrel was doing wasn't good enough, even though that's the best way it could contribute. That's when Lord Ram intervened. He picked up the little squirrel and said, "Thank you for your important work, squirrel." And he told all the monkeys to go and look at the bridge that they were building. There were big stones, but there were little pebbles that filled up the holes when two stones hit together. And those little pebbles were binding the stones together to make sure they didn't move, and it was a solid structure. And Sri Ram said to all the monkeys, "No matter how big or small a task, every task is important, and everybody's role is just as important as the person next to them. So we can't really make fun of someone thinking they're not as strong enough, they're not as big enough, or they're not as important enough as you. Because everyone has a role to play, and each and every role is important." And that was a big lesson. And the squirrel was very happy and continued, and all the monkeys and squirrel, they worked together to complete the bridge made with rocks and pebbles, where the rocks had Ram written on it. Now what happens? Ram and his entire monkey army, along with Lakshman, Sugriv, Sri Hanuman, they all reached Lanka and set up their base camp. So in our next episode, we're going to find out what happens after that. Do you think Ram is going to try one more time and give Ravan a chance to surrender and forget about the war? Or do you think there will be a war right away? And do you think Ravan's going to have a change of heart and really recognize what he's doing is wrong? All these questions will be answered in the next episode, episode number 11. Till then, stay well and thank you so much. Namaskar.